This is the Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. It is General Leia Organa Saturday morning. I should say Saturday dawn. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. Before we begin this morning's silent meditation, let us chant two meditation classics, both Pure Golden Ore, followed by the Cuckoo Song of Pure Presence, also known as the 6 Vajra verses. Now, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. Luminous mind inexpressible beyond conceptualization, as the light of the teacher is extolled by all. So there's just some confusion here. I'm going to do my best to alleviate it by using a technique known as amplifying the text. Okay, so let's try this again. Luminous mind inexpressible beyond conceptualization. As the light of the teacher, luminous mind is extolled by all. As the heart of experience, luminous mind is like gentle prince, the archetype of insight and letting go, also known as Manjushri. Let's take a moment to explore this. Insight and letting go reminds us that of a phrase used a few centuries later by Yongjie Xuanzhui of China, who gave us the Song of Enlightenment, reminding us that, yes, even emptiness is empty, reminding us to let go of everything, including lofty-sounding philosophies about letting go. Let's continue. Resting in the spontaneous pleasure of effortless perfection. Questions? Excellent. As the basis of all disciplines such as moral conduct, luminous mind provides release in its every mood. It is a Buddha's mother and the universal path. Without it, a Buddha could not come into being. So, once again, I'm going to amplify the text, just to make it easier to understand. Life's difficult. Why make it more difficult? All right, kids? Luminous mind is a Buddha's mother and the universal path. Without luminous mind, a Buddha cannot come into being. What do we mean by luminous mind? In this context, mind refers to our ability to notice, to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all manner of phenomena. sight, sound, sensations, flavor, sense, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Our ability to notice the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque. Luminous here, in this context, refers to light, which although is visible, is not graspable. It is seen yet void. So as we relax into our exhalation, all that we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even less graspable. At least for a moment, at least to a certain degree, until the next inhalation and the cycle begins afresh. So luminous mind in this context is just another way of saying mindfulness and meditation, noticing and relaxing. We are the way of supreme liberation. We, all our perceptions, all our emotions, all our intentions, all our thoughts, all our all our imaginings, all our intentions, be they pleasurable, painful, interesting, boring, glorious, or grotesque, as long as we notice them and relax into them in harmony with our breathing, they become the way, the supreme liberation. Good morning, Neocrane. Subtle and elusive, this universal path transcends the duality of thinking and non-thinking. Without it, without the duality of location or reference and determinant, it is beyond all conceptualization. Unutterable, it has no color or shape and no sensory field. Intangible and inscrutable, it is inexpressible. So we keep using the pronoun it. What is it? The universal path. So this is very important. It's easy, in our scary, scary world, it's easy to be scared and want to make everything rigid and spelled out. But what we're being reminded is that the ultimate path defies our tendencies to be rigid and fearful and superstitious and controlling. And in another text, the author uses the phrase, it is like a path of a bird in the sky. By simply devoting ourselves to noticing and relaxing, our choices and utterances and deeds are no longer controlled by contrived calculations or wild scatteredness, but instead they flow from love's deeply centered spontaneity. This becomes our guiding light. If you remember Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, there is a point where he has to step across a bridge, but the bridge is obscured by I want to say visual illusions. That's not the optical illusions. And it isn't until he takes his first step onto the bridge that he's able to see the rest of the bridge. Similarly, this is not a question of faith or understanding. This is a question of training our viscera to flow from love's deeply centered spontaneity. And the key to doing that is to train and and noticing and relaxing at least once every 12 hours or so. Questions? Questions. Okay. Whoever follows whoever the path. Okay, so cut and paste and capitalize and bold and add an accent, add a space, whoops. And let's continue. However, whoever follows the path of the ancient ascetics becomes sick from attachment to that concentration process. The literal interpretation of the teacher's instructions is experienced as an arduous quest. As they chase a stream of concepts as if pursuing a mirage, for the perfect modality cannot be indicated by mere words. And any rigid, fearful, or elitist grasping at so-called true doctrine makes a travesty of George's sympathy archetype of simply noticing and relaxing. So this archetype holds in his hand his right hand a Vajra, in his left hand a bell. So the Vajra represents perception, or just noticing, and the bell represents the shattering effect upon those perceptions of simply relaxing. Purity and impurity. Let's see, checking for questions. Purity and impurity as one inseparably mixed. Pristine awareness and bewilderment are indivisible. This lamp of unimpeded clarity, free of conceptualization and obstinate befuddlement, in and of themselves are sovereign samadhi. So this is important. Whether what we experience is murky or clear, whether what we experience is tumultuous or peaceful, as long as we notice and relax in harmony with our breathing, any experience can enlighten us. Not only peace, not only joy, but also rage and terror and despair, provided we persist in noticing and relaxing in harmony with our breathing. Checking for questions, checking for questions. The eye of direct insight, seeing directly, sees nothing. One moment. So anything you see in brackets in smaller font is called an amplification. It's kind of like a micro commentary. The eye of direct insight, seeing directly, sees an empty nothing, and it is called the Buddha eye of omniscience. So, for instance, the experience of the enlightened is that sights are appearing yet void, sounds are resounding yet void, sensations are sensual yet void, scents are fragrant yet void, flavors are flavorful yet void. So know the nature of vastness without center or boundary. For there lies undiscriminating sovereign sameness. A common theme in this teacher's advice is to forsake rigidity and concentration, and instead to be completely vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting when it comes to noticing whatever comes up. I'm reminded of the title of a Dr. Seuss book, I think his last book, titled Oh, the Places You Will Go. And when led simply by the centered spontaneity that is the effortless byproduct of noticing and relaxing, life truly becomes an exciting adventure. Luminous mind and its habits are one inseparably mixed. So not all habits are good, some are destructive. All manifested experience shine as adornment, for they are merely projected by mind. Neither accepted nor rejected, simply let it be and enjoy it. So, for instance, my chi is often upset by windstorms. And so there's a windstorm right now. And when I got up this morning, I started having flashbacks to a very, very, very painful experience, emotionally painful experience I had at a dentist's office. And so my job is not to talk to myself until that pain went away. My job was not to repress that. My job was not to indulge that and have a star-spangled shit fit. My job was to notice it with profound vulnerability as I breathe in and relax into it, relax into the images, relax into the emotions, relax into the sounds as I breathe it out. Not with the purpose of making it go away, but with the purpose of surfing it, of making the most of whatever crosses our path, whatever pierces our sphere of awareness. Be it a perception, emotion, intention, a thought, a memory, or an imagining. Checking for questions and checking for questions. Activity that is personally repugnant or culturally taboo, such as the 5 mental poisons of dread, desire, delusion, jealousy, and pride. Or the 5 so-called unforgivable crimes of matricide, patricide, maliciously wounding or Buddha stealing offerings or being religiously divisive. Could deliver the realization of sovereign sameness. For on this path of purity no pleasure is rejected, certainly not even sex. So we can think of there being 2 Buddhisms, Proto-Buddhism and institutional Buddhism. So imagine Proto-Buddhism as modeling clay on a potter's wheel. And under the influence of a potter, a lump of clay can be turned into a vase. Well, under the influence of those who are rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, the wise and loving teachings of the Buddha become something very dark and impressive and impotent that I like to describe as institutional Buddhism. So institutional Buddhism is fond of stacking hundreds of rules, but the Buddha kept it simple. Consider, if you will, the Eightfold Path. It contains, four facets of love that we should practice kind intention, kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce. That's all the morality we need, is kindness. How do we know how to be kind? Well, that brings us to the sixth fold of the path, the right effort of effortless effort that comes wherein our choices and utterances and deeds flow from love's deeply centered spontaneity. Checking for questions. Any questions? The intellect could be overly conditioned by the rigidity of tradition and literalism, such as Samadhi's three contrived analogues of awareness, bliss, and love, as well as the dogmatic belief in doctrine. Which are the delusions that undermine effortless transmission? Instead of such folly, let us abide in the treasure of free-form perfection. So perfection or completion here infers that simply by noticing and relaxing is a complete path. That's all we need. The core of sublime self-originating awareness, imperturbable, unchanging, and unelaborated. So, how can awareness be imperturbable? Because we're wired, every time we breathe in, regardless of our mood, we are wired to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which could be described as the hub of our sympathetic nervous system. Every time we relax, we are wired to automatically access the tippy top and the very bottom of that same spinal cord, which as a team could be described as the hub of our parasympathetic nervous system, which is wired for physical relaxation and mental release. The very structure of our central nervous system is constant, unless, of course, we're murdered, right? And we dissolve and we decompose. So that's the idea here. Oopsie, I made a boo-boo. Let's go back. Here we go. So that's the idea being discussed there. Is the ambrosia of the timeless consummation of noticing and relaxing. So we think of the romantic consummationism of a marriage when the two individuals married go make whoopee. Well, the spiritual consummation is the relationship described by our enthusiasms to spontaneously notice and relax. In this image, the figure in white represents awareness, and the figure in blue represents release. Spontaneous awareness, centered release. Is the ambrosia of that timeless consummation of noticing and relaxing that vanquishes the pain of any exertion, thus resting in the here and now. Every ambition is spontaneously fulfilled. Many personal development coaches make a lot of money selling books telling us how to create goals and vision boards and the like. But we evolved to already have an aversion to peril, scarcity, pain, scorn, and anonymity. And we already evolved to desire and be drawn to safety, abundance, pleasure, adoration, and fame for evolutionary purposes. In other words, we don't have to force that. It's already wired into us. However, most of us have been humanity has been conditioned for the last 13 millennia to exhaustingly live in perpetual competition against our own autonomic nervous systems. However, the more we practice mindfulness and meditation, at least once every 12 hours a day, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds could flow from love's deeply centered spontaneity, causing us to use all the organelles of our central nervous system in the most sustainable way, and all the tools at our disposal in the most gentle, loving, and sustainable way to gently create for our lives a dream instead of a nightmare. Checking for questions. Hey, magnificent one, listen, all and everything in experience has the nature of luminous mind. Everything can be noticed, everything can be released. It is like an all-inclusive essential dropping capable of being controlled by the dualities of. So, essential drop here is a reference to something called Anu Yoga, or channels, winds, and drops, also known as Tikle in Tibetan, and it is a form of concentration upon bliss, the bliss we feel in our body. The author has already said concentration ain't the way. So we're being told here by saying that luminous mind, that awareness and release is like the essential drop is saying the ultimate thing that's going to give us all the benefits promised to us by concentration is the opposite of concentration. It is simply awareness and release. Awareness and release that is not controlled by the tyranny of the following dualities: elaboration or concentration, expansion or concentration, generation or cessation. Unconfided is simply being. This inconceivable essential noticing and relax. Okay, let's try again. I kind of have trouble chanting this passage. This inconceivable essential noticing and relaxing, always present like the sky, everywhere present like space, transcends ideas and speech. So we've explored many ideas that can best be summarized in the following 6 couplets of the Cuckoo Song of Pure Presence. The nature of multiplicity is non-dual, and things are naturally pure and simple, being contrivance-free in the here and now, shining out in all forms. It is always all good. So this individual is known as the all-good mother and father sporting in tantric union, hence the phrase all good. So you might say, what makes something all good? Obviously, we look around us and we see greed and hate and cruelty and short-sightedness. How could that be good? Anything that causes us to notice and relax benefits us on a spiritual path. Now, does that mean that we are cold-hearted to the victims of others' greed and cruelty? No. The more we passively cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, the more our anxious and aggressive amygdala is calmed, and the more our empathetic anterior cingulate gyrus is gently stimulated. In other words, the more we cooperate with our capacity to notice and relax, the more empathy we feel. We don't have to force it. It's natural. It's what we have evolved to do. We've evolved for both compassion and cooperation, thanks to both our anterior cingulate gyrus as well as our oxytocin-oriented reward system. It's already locked in there. Let's continue. This innate perfection renders exertion redundant, and love-centered spontaneity ever natural. So just as it's ironic to plan for spontaneity, we don't have to force going with the flow. It's what we are designed to do. It's what we have evolved to do. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, we could sit and notice and relax in harmony with our inhalations and our exhalations. Whoops, I did not access the visual aids. Let me try that again. Got to press button 4 every time. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let us sit and notice and relax in harmony with our respective inhalations and exhalations. The moment you have a specific question about the philosophies and meditations, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. For I tend to check for questions about once every 8 minutes or so. So I'm going to do some quick math. So let's see, 55 minutes minus, not much time there. Okay, well, enough of that. Let's just get to it. Not much time left in our hour this morning. As our diaphragm flexes down during our inhalation, we could notice. As our air leaves our nostrils during our exhalation, we could relax. Breathing in with our diaphragm helps us to sit up nice and tall. Breathing out through our nose helps us to relax. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers, just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk recitation, explanation, and practice of meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.